Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 278, Mixed Bag. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Malwarebytes Tech Bench. This is a comprehensive partnership program for repair shops looking to boost margins and grow their business. You can get a portable tool set to help you diagnose, remediate, and secure PCs. Malwarebytes Tool Bench, built for technicians by technicians. Go to malwarebytes.com/techbench. And also by FreshBooks, the simple pain-free invoicing solution for freelancers and small business owners. For a free 30-day trial, just go to freshbooks.com/Podnutz. Enter Podnutz in the How Did You Hear About Us section. And also by Ninja RMM, the simple-to-use remote monitoring and management solution. Try it free at ninjarmm.com/10off. Let me introduce the co-host. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. How you doing, John?
Well, Jeff, there was no show last week, so you couldn't throw me under the bus, so I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome, man. And also joining us, we have Tim Taylor from TaylorWorks.com. And Tim was also the author of How to Start and Run a Successful IT Company Without Losing Your Shirt. And he was back with us on episode number 257. So you want to hear his in-depth story, you can go back and check that out. Tim, how you doing?
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
It's going awesome. All right, glad to have everybody here. And we have the reason it's a mixed bag today is we're going to kind of go all over the place, but let's take care of some business with, let's share a tip or story that we can learn from. And John, you're up.
Couple tips this week. I'll start with my firewall vendor, Calyptix. Everybody knows that. Came out with a list of the top causes of data breaches in 2018 that I'll put a link in the show notes to. Just a great read if you're managing business networks and such. It's good something to review just to make sure that you're covering all of your bases. And on the same topic, I don't know if everybody's heard it, but if you go back and listen to an older Podnutz Pro, they tell the story about how one of their clients did a faulty or a false money transfer, wire transfer. And they were able to stop that. But I don't know if everybody knows about something called using the kill chain process. It's actually a process that the government does that if you can catch the wire transfer in so many days that they'll help you kill it before it gets overseas. And it's a quick reaction to that. So I'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. So I thought that was interesting. I learned about that at a conference that I was out at last week. Let's see. Microsoft is jumping on board to help out Chrome. There's a new Microsoft Windows Defender extension for your Chrome browser. Use at your own risk or embrace with open arms, purely for information. Our friends over at Arachnus, here's some cool news for Overseer. You guys that get into the IoT devices, Lutron and SnapAV. SnapAV is the Arachnus guys who do Overseer. I've made a deal where you can now control a lot of the Lutron products from your Overseer control panel. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then last but not least, I think everybody knows Monday, the next Windows 10 April update is being released. A couple new features. It's sure to create some exciting times and fun for us. That's all I got this week.
Of course, you're being facetious with that last comment, but yeah.
We all love our jobs, Jeff. Of course.
Well, appreciate that. And Tim, how about you?
All right, guys, welcome. I enjoyed first live show I've done here. So good tip that's coming up. Windows 2008 will be not supported in 20 months. That is just not very long, 18 to 20 months. You need to start planning now. Start talking to your customers about putting this into their budgets coming forward. There'll be big projects. There's no direct upgrade from 2012 server to 2016 server or 2008 to 2012 for that matter. It's got to be replaced. You've got to create new servers, spin up new cloud servers or new in-house servers, a lot of new hardware. It's a great opportunity for you to sell a lot of new hardware and projects to your customers. The other thing that's being retired is Windows 7. Windows 7 extended support. It's already in extended support. Both products will be done in January of 2020. So Windows 10 is still a free upgrade, even though Microsoft doesn't really advertise that. It's still a free upgrade. So start upgrading all of your workstations. In certain office, go in and upgrade one, make sure all of their software works with it, and then just start upgrading people. Tell them not to be afraid of it. You can set it up just like Windows 7. It works fine. And I haven't personally run against anything that doesn't work on it. There may be some line of business applications that people will say, well, we're not supporting Windows 10 yet. It's just because they haven't tested it that much. But unless you absolutely cannot upgrade to Windows 10 on the workstations, go ahead and get it done.
Very good. And I think a lot of those people that are basically waiting with these line of business applications, it's not a lot of times necessarily the product itself. It's that the product is generations old. And
Right.
a lot of times the customers does not want to upgrade it by spending upwards of $5, 10, 15, $20,000 for an upgrade license to get these things to work on the next operating system. To me, that's just a business cost. And it's something that they've known about for a long time. And we try to push that information to them, but they don't want to listen until it's like, hey, now you got to pony up 10,000 like right now. And you could have saved over the last 4 years. We've been talking about this and you knew it was coming, but you didn't. So now what do we do? So yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's a great opportunity to make some upgrades to networks that need to be upgraded anyway. So you can finally say this is no longer supported, like Server 2003 and XP a while back. I have to make this upgrade. So it's a great opportunity to get your networks where they need to be. And yeah, a lot of customers put off upgrades. We come into new customers all the time where they say, oh, this line of business application, we're having this problem with it. We call the company and they go, they didn't buy a support contract. They're 4 years behind on a support contract. I can't help you. So it's always an issue.
All right. So let's see. My two tips. I have one. I ran into an issue. I was cleaning up some USB flash drives the other night, some with my ISO, some with my tools on it, and trying to consolidate because, nobody likes to have a mess of USB flash drives when they're on a key ring and there's like 15 on there. So one of the things I ran into is I tried using Easy to Boot a while back. Not really a fan. I know a lot of you guys out there listening love it, and that's great, and it works for you. I just couldn't get it to work. I'd rather have just a fresh ISO on any of my flash drives if I need to upload or install Windows 10 or Windows 7 or Windows 8. I've got all of those, even when I have to do XP for certain nefarious reasons. No, for certain reasons for some small business owners that don't put those online, but they need them for running their application for whatever it is. But with that being said, when I deleted or formatted the USB drive, well, Easy to Boot did its magic when it was setting it up, so it made it a bootable flash drive. And because it was a bootable flash drive, it had a partition. And it was like a 31 kilobyte partition. And I'm assuming that was to make it bootable when you stick it in a computer and turn it on. So I deleted all the information off of there, tried formatting it, went into disk management, and really couldn't do anything with it. Everything was grayed out, as it usually is under disk management. So I had forgotten a tool that's built into the command prompt, and that is disk part. And I was basically able to go in, and it took me like less than a minute, typed in the command disk part, and you guys can look that information up. But basically went from there, listed the disks, found the USB flash drive, selected that, and typed in clean, boom, cleaned it up, pulled the whole thing back together. Then I had to go back into disk management for whatever reason. There was an error. I don't know why. And basically I had to make it a simple volume again. Not a big deal. Again, less than a couple minutes, the thing was back to its original single letter drive, which is what I wanted. So that was one. Another one for those that are maybe gamers or have an Xbox One in your house. We sometimes forget, even though it's a gaming console, this thing really is just a computer. So I ran into an issue where I walked in my living room, as I normally do, and I said, hey, Cortana, sorry about that, and turn on the television or turn on the Xbox. Turns on my TV, turns on the Xbox, all this kind of stuff. And you could hear it, and it clicked, but the Xbox never turned on. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out, I'm like, oh, why is the Xbox not turning on? The stereo turned on. Cortana lit up and heard me. She turned on. The TV turned on, but the Xbox did not turn on. So I was a little frustrated. It was a long night for whatever reason. And my son, my 19-year-old son, who's actually, it's his Xbox. I said, hey, get over here. I said, what's going on with this thing? I'm the computer guy. He could care less, but I'm frustrated. I don't want to deal with it. So he gets down there. He's looking. What does he do? Unplugs it. Because Xbox One, for those that know, Xbox One is on all the time. Gets its updates. It's on even in a sleep type mode. It's always on. Obviously, to hear you when you walk in a room and talk to it and all that. So he unplugged it, let the power go out, plugged it back in, and guess what? It started up. So again, it goes back to one of those rules of sometimes you just need to turn it off and turn it on again. So I thought that was pretty good. And my son taught me something that I should have known, but wasn't even thinking about it. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll go into our main topics, which we have a lot of, and we'll see how far we can get. And we also have several emails to get through. So we got a lot of good information, and hopefully we got a great panel here that's going to be able to share their knowledge. Because, again, I'm just here as the eye candy. I mean, as the host. All right, our show today is brought to you by FreshBooks. Small business owners, it's time to be honest about how you feel when dealing with your day-to-day admin work. Admit it. You can't stand it. It's a total grind. Nobody likes paperwork. The truth is, over 5 million small business owners felt exactly the same way until they discovered FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the dead simple cloud accounting software that's transforming how small business owners handle their paperwork. You have invoicing. Using FreshBooks to create and send an invoice literally takes about 30 seconds. There's no formulas or formatting, just perfectly crafted invoices every time. Online payments. Your clients can pay you online, which often means you end up getting paid a lot faster. Project deposits. There's a super handy deposit feature so you can invoice for a payment up front when you're kicking off a project. You have insights. FreshBooks can even show you whether or not a client has looked at the invoice you've emailed. Ever run in that situation? Hey, did you get the invoice I sent you? No, I didn't. Really, that's funny because it's opened up right here. So at least you know whether they got it or not. And that is half the battle right there. This is only a fraction of what FreshBooks can do for you. You owe it to yourself to feel the full effect of FreshBooks on you and your small business. For a free 30-day trial, just go to freshbooks.com/Podnutz. Enter Podnutz in the How Did You Hear About Us section. All right, we are going to go into some random topics. And this first topic on our list is something I know that is both near to Tim Taylor's heart and John Dubinsky's heart, and that is taking the next step to growing your business from break fix to managed services for business and residential clients. All right, who wants to kick this off and talk about some of the things that we need to think about when we're making this transition? Or is it really a transition in mind? Is it a transmission or transition in how we do things? Because it seems like, from my standpoint, when I look at what everybody does on both sides of the business, it looks like a lot of things are the same for the most part. And there are some different things out there that make them different, which is good, which can be good and bad, depending on how you roll your business. John, what do you think about when you talk about the managed service model, which obviously is what you do 100% of the time now?
Well, we go running around about the MSP and the acronym and what we really actually think it means. But well, taking the next step, and I would suggest, scaling up from home to business customers. The first thing you got to do is obviously find those customers. If you're purely a home user now, the great place to start there are with your home customers. Obviously, they have to work at a business. If you're doing a good job, I remember back when I started at the residential, I got my first business customer based on a residential client where she said, "Hey, can you come help me install a printer at the office?" And I can still remember this gigantic Epson inkjet printer that I didn't know anything about, running on a system I knew nothing about, that I figured out how to install and get working. And huzzah, I was into business consulting. So everybody has a little magic trip to do that. But, from experience, obviously, we've talked about this back on other shows. You have to go back into things like, getting organized with your documentation, making sure you have a good product scope developed for all of the business needs that are out there today. It's a lot different now than it was 5 or 10 years ago with compliance and all those other things. And scaling and standardizing on the products that you want to use for those businesses, because if you take on a lot of endpoints, you're going to want to be able to manage those endpoints precisely. So, standardization, and what I would suggest is just move slowly.
Okay, very good. And Tim, I know you've done many, many things over the years. Obviously, you wrote the book on, getting a successful IT company without losing your shirt. And I'm sure, even though that's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek title, there's a lot of things that people can learn from other people's experiences, which is good, so that they actually don't feel the same types of pains that maybe you had to go through growing your business.
They don't make the mistakes I made early on.
Right. Amen. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I wrote my book. When I started my company in '99, I looked for a book, how to start and run a successful IT company. There were no such thing as managed services back then, or at least no one ever called it that. And I couldn't find it. So one day, in the previous podcast that we did, I talked all about writing the book, but I finally wrote it and documented. It was good exercise too. I was able to document, well, how did you do this? What did you do to get this started? And I think one of the biggest, and I started directly into business, didn't do home computers first. In fact, when we moved in the house we live in now, my wife and I, we wouldn't tell our neighbors what I did for a living, because if they knew I was an IT guy, they would be following my car up the driveway, knocking on the window. In fact, my neighbor next door found out, and he literally did that. I pulled in my driveway, and he's knocking on the glass of my car, trying to get me to come help him with his computer. So I did not do home computers. And at the very beginning, I did some. And it's not my forte. I really didn't want to do it. I know a lot of your listeners do it, and I'm sure they're very, very good at it. But it's just not something that I wanted to do. I would say the biggest thing, the move between home and business, is the tools you use. You've got to be very good with the tools, and your response time has to be really good. In a home computer, they say, hey, I've got a problem. Can you come over tomorrow and take a look at it? In businesses, it's not like that. You've got to be set up to do very close to instant response time. You've got to be able to remote in or go and take care of their issues. If they're going to work with you, one of the biggest things is making sure you're going to be there, and be there when you say you're going to be there. And I used to have a ring of keys of all of my customers' offices and their alarm codes. And if they would call me at the end of the day, I'd say, well, it's going to be fixed before you come in tomorrow. And I would go over there. Sometimes I'd go home and have dinner and say, honey, I got to go over to such and such. And I made that kind of commitment, because when you're small, one of the big things you fight against being small is the perception that you're not so small and that they don't want to use a larger company. So if they can always count on you, we called Tim at 4 o'clock, but when we came in this morning, everything was fixed. You got to make that commitment. Businesses have to work every day, even if they're a nonprofit. I mean, I remember going into some churches early on and working till 2 or 3 in the morning, sometimes upgrading their networks or whatever needed to be done. And going out to my car, and it's freezing, it's frost on the windows. And, it just takes that kind of commitment. But getting the tools right, what are you going to use for your remote communication tool? What AV are you going to put on the machines? And I would say, to keep from losing your mind, one of the most important things is to find one product that you use, you put everywhere. Put the same AV. What I do at our managed service plan, I said it includes antivirus. It includes our remote communication tool. So everybody's got the same thing. So you only have to learn one product. If they really want to use something different than what you have, say they just bought an antivirus and the subscription's going to be out in a year, go ahead and let it run out, and then put your tool on there. But the more standardized you can make it for everybody, the better it's going to be on you.
That's a good point. We talk about standardization all the time. One of the things that I think a lot of people I'm going to kind of be the devil's advocate a little bit on both sides. And just
here
because here we go. Just because
you're so good at
just because of the standpoint of, sometimes you can find businesses out there that don't need instant response time. And a lot of times, this is what I did when I used to do churches and all that kind of stuff. I would find the ones that, I'm available, because a lot of people that are doing this are starting off, maybe they have a full-time job, or maybe they're just getting into this, they're doing it part-time, or they're just getting started. And so a lot of times you can find those customers that don't need you Johnny on the spot. Hey, this stuff is broke. I need it fixed, but it's not like immediate right now. So I think a lot of people think that you always got to be Johnny on the spot with everything. But now, Tim, from your standpoint, you've got to have some sort of an SLA to cover different customers, because there's only one of you and you only have so many employees that you can send out there to get the job done. So everybody's got a cap on how much they can actually do.
When you find that customer that doesn't want you there immediately, I want you to send me their name.
Okay.
They call it a personal computer for a reason. They take it personally when it doesn't work. Back in the mainframe days, I was a mainframe programmer many years ago. And it's like, oh, the mainframe's down. Oh, everybody gets a coffee break. Everybody's happy. When their personal computer doesn't work, it's a whole nother ballgame. But you have a point, yes. I mean, it depends on the severity of the issue.
Right.
Okay, my computer is acting up, but it's still functioning. Can you take a look at it tomorrow for me? Can you take a look at it after hours? If you're one of the people that has a full-time job and you're trying to start a computer business and start a practice, maybe you're going to have to just work in the evenings because you have your full-time job. Say, I'll come in, I'll check in with you right as you're leaving, and you give me keys to the building, and I'll come in after hours and I'll take care of it. You have the disadvantage, though, of not being able to test it with them. Make them test it before you leave to make sure everything is working. Can't tell you the number of times I've fixed something and it worked perfect for me, and they walk up right behind me and it doesn't. Well, they're doing something different than I did.
Right.
If they're there, obviously you can see that. But yeah, I mean, it all depends on the issue. If it's a server down issue, or if it's any issue that affects more than one person, that's when they need you there quickly. And I saw a calculator the other day. Datto, D-A-T-T-O, makes an excellent backup product, and they have a system down calculator that you can use with a business. You basically say, okay, they have 20 employees. They make an average of, let's just say, $20 an hour. How much does it cost them per hour to be down? And that right there shows them a lot. And so they want to put the right products in place to where their network doesn't go down, or it gets back up quickly with a good backup system. And people take it very seriously in a business environment when their machines don't work.
I agree with that. And yeah, like I said, you got to pick your types of businesses out there. John, I know that I went with you the other day and we did, I don't know, it was around 200 miles and went from customer to customer to customer. And the stuff that we did going in and fixing the problems, and you're basically all you can eat. You charge them a monthly fee, and whatever breaks or whatever consulting you do, that's all inclusive. So you include that in the plan. And so we were basically, I don't know if we did 2 circles, but I think we did almost like a circle and a half in the same direction and ended up in the same spot either twice or 3 times. I'm not sure, but it was a lot. And so obviously those customers were still operating and still doing what they needed to do, but they had some very serious issues with some of their computers.
Well, and the short story is we started out about 60 miles from my home base office on the west side of my state, planning a quick stop at a customer site to then head to Chicago for some work we were going to do there. And then along the way, we got a call from a dental office about 70 miles, one of our further ones, to the east. So that said they had a power issue that blew out a couple power supplies and a few of their Dell Optiplex computers. So we went to the west, clear back to the east, and then back to the west. And that's just something that happens. If you're a solo tech, you got to kind of plan in the back of your mind that those things may happen, that you may need to be in 2 places at once. If you do want to go on vacation, you better have some sort of backup for your business clients or a partner that can help you. That partner may not be an employee, but it might be a partner organization. That is how I operate. But yeah, you have to be able to take all that in because, Murphy doesn't tend to break things when you're just sitting around in the hot tub getting a manicure or a pedicure. So, you got to be prepared to react at all that time. And Tim hit it right on the head. If you're going to start out, you got to be better than the rest. So you better be prepared to have that key ring with keys, be the glorified janitor and head there at night to get things done.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this too, working in the evenings sometimes is a blessing because when you're talking about business support, a lot of times businesses are 9 to 5 generally. And because they're 9 to 5, that means their evenings are open. And I know a lot of solo techs will do weekend work also. And so you can get in there after work. And like Tim said and John said about having the keys or being able to remote in and take care of these issues on the fly. I know from the residential side, I do a lot of for my managed clients, my managed residential clients, I do my remote work in evening. I will get an email during the day while I'm working my job, and I'll just email them back and go, leave your computer on, and I'll take a look at it. When I get home from work, whenever I have some time in there, I load up my instant house call and remote in and look at the problem, take care of it. Usually it's a quick fix. Sometimes it's a little more in depth, but I think everything will kind of balance out. But to me, that's a blessing. You can go to businesses after work and on the weekends when you're working that regular day job.
And I don't know if you realize it, but you just hit on a very good point regarding business clients. Keep in mind the type of business client you might be engaging with. If you choose to do business with maybe a restaurant or bar, keep in mind that they can have trouble at 2 a.m. with our point of sale systems and stuff like that. So you might need to be on call or staff for that type of response to those types of organizations if they demand it. Or medical, sometimes they're 24 hours or they're, so just keep in mind, if you're onboarding a business client, not all of them are 9 to 5, but generally a small business, that's going to be the cap or the margin of error you're going to have there.
And I also agree with you guys too, that from a standpoint of, I tell my kids this all the time, literally, because I've heard all the different IT companies, even companies that are, businesses that I work for now, they've had other IT companies come in there, and I've heard all kinds of stories about no response, and they're way bigger companies than I am. Here's the thing. You just got to be that much better than everybody else out there. It doesn't really take much. It just takes kind of giving a crap. And I'm not allowed to say that word. But it kind of takes, caring about your customers and being able to do what they need done and show up as when you say you're going to show up, be on time. I am never, I can't remember. I might have been late 1 or 2 times, but I usually, if I'm going to be late, just make a phone call. Again, communication is 9/10 of the law. Communicate with your customers, and most of the time, everything is just fine. Okay, no big deal. We'll move on, because obviously customers do that all the time too. They'll call you and they won't get you.
That's very important. And, at the very beginning, I remember when I started my company, I can't tell you the number of people that said, I called this IT guy yesterday. He's supposed to be here this morning. He's not here. Just showing up when you say you're going to be there and showing up on time. And if you're not on time, like you said, just all you have to do is give them a call. Say, hey, I got stuck at a previous client and I'm going to be an hour late. Nobody ever has a problem with that. But when you don't show and don't call, that's the end of the rope. And the very first really large client I got, it was actually a big church. And I came in there and they said, the last IT guy we saw, I walked in the door, they had 8 PCs and an old server that had no backup system. The tape drive had been removed. And this was back in the, early 2000s. And they said, the last IT guy, he pulled the tape drive out. So I'm going to go get this fixed and I'll be back. And that's the last they ever saw of him. And they called, his number was disconnected. So it was a pretty easy client to get. And I helped them grow from 8 machines to 50 over the next 4 or 5 years. So, but yeah, being there when you say you're going to be there, reliable, and using those tools, be consistent with your tools, especially your remote tool, because as long as that machine's not broken, you should be able to remote into it. And if you have the same tool on all your machines, it's just, go down, scan down your list. There they are, click, 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 and you're on the computer and you're helping them. And you don't have to remember, oh yeah, I got to do this there, I got to do that here. I mean, it's just so much easier to do.
Now, Tim, a lot of people will talk about things like passwords and password management when it comes to doing business and having the keys after hours. I always talk about it as a trust factor. If they don't trust me, they shouldn't be doing business with me. Bottom line, vice versa. But how do you manage passwords? Because obviously a lot of times you're remoting into a machine that's going to take a password to get into.
Right. Well, passwords are always a challenge, and it also depends on the customer. If they're medical, you have to force password changes every 90 days. 99% of the time in the business environment, they want us to work on their machines when they're there because they want to see you working on it. They want to see the resolution. They want to test the resolution when you're done. Now we have tools, as long as the machine is turned on and it's logged in, it allows us right into their session, even if they're not physically sitting there. So I don't basically have to know their password. I don't have to log on as them. As long as it's logged on by them, I can come in. Okay. So password isn't as critical of an issue. Even after hours, they can leave it. But if you run into something, well, what was your problem really? This seems to be working. They're not there to talk to you. So a lot of people like to say, hey, I'll just leave the machine on and you take care of it. But having them there really is a benefit. And when you get into a larger environment like we've created, multiple guys on the help desk, one guy can be remoted into several machines and then chatting back and forth with 2 or 3 people. And you can really enhance your, the number of people that you can help with the right tools. You talk to them on the phone initially and then say, I'll start chatting with you as I fix your issue, especially if you're removing a virus or scanning the machine, something like that takes a while. You can then be helping other people. But passwords is an issue, and there are passportal. There's some password managers out there like that. You can always override their password as the network administrator. You can force a change, then you can log on as them, but then they're going to know you changed it, and they're going to need to know what the new password is. And so, and then you get into two-factor authentication in some places. You can't log in as them because you don't have the card to swipe or anything like that. So the best way to do it is when they're there. You got to do it when they're there and, work from that angle.
And I've run into that even on the residential side. I've run into that issue where a client has called me or I'm calling them because I'm remoting their computer. I have their password. I can log in. Not a big deal. I'm in there, but then I've got to log into an account that's set up with two-factor authentication because that's what I've done for them. And they have their phone. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to hang up. I'm going to send this passcode. Just call me back. I just need the numbers. And they got to call back because they're like, I'm not at home right now. Okay, no big deal. So a lot of times I'll deal with that stuff on the fly from the residential side.
It is a challenge in the business environment because oftentimes people mostly put in tickets into our system. They send an email to help@TaylorWorks and it generates a ticket in our system. Then we call them back and they're not at their desk. And then, you usually call them back a couple of times and you document that. And then, you eventually get them or don't get them. You have to set the ticket into waiting on customer, so then they go to their boss and complain, they never helped me. Well, here we can verify we called you 3 times and you weren't there. So it's a good idea to have, if you have a ticketing system, to have the main office administrator or the owner copied on everything. So even it may generate a lot of email, but you can create a rule in their email system, in their Outlook or whatever, to automatically put all those into a folder. So it's not just constantly popping up in their inbox, but then they get notified of everything that goes on, every ticket that's opened, every response, every time a ticket's closed. They're getting notified on all that. And they can see attempted to connect 2 or 3 times and, put the ticket status in waiting on client. But then they can't say they didn't know because they were notified.
Gotcha. Did you say Outlook?
I said Outlook, yes.
See, John, I'm not the only one that uses Outlook. See,
there's 2 of you.
There's other people that
there's 2.
99% of my customers use it.
John, what do you do for passwords? And obviously you've got, your customers are out there too. What do you do for passwords to be able to get in the systems and dealing with dual authentication and all that kind of stuff in your business?
Well, yeah, there's the biggies. I think you guys probably already mentioned like IT Glue or SI Portal or Tech Portal, which it's called now, and some others. But, I have my own system that I built through Google Docs. Since I am a solo tech, that works for me. That would probably not work in a larger organization where you have to have some standards based on who can get to what, based on, what their skill level is in the business. And part of that you have to deal with maybe some compliance issues and who can see those passwords and all that we keep rolling back to. So as far as passwords and recording passwords, I keep those myself. And I try to collect as much information, even if I maybe don't even think that I need it, about all the networks and users I manage. Not just on the business side, but meaning like I keep track of the equipment that the WAN providers, the internet providers, I have the make and model of like all the Comcast modems that are in there because that comes up that certain providers might have. VoIP providers might have issues with certain types of modems that are installed. So that allows me to head a lot of that stuff out of the past. So, any recommendation, and I think we keep circling back to it, is, before you switch, and from residential to business, and this is probably even important in residential, is your documentation, having some sort of platform or homegrown system that keeps track of all of that for you.
Well, and I think from a standpoint, I think one of the things that was brought up, and this came from our secret Facebook group, but they were talking about managed services for both business and residential. And I know the people that do residential out there. I am all about recurring revenue. A lot of people laugh because I throw up in my mouth every time somebody mentions MSP, because again, I think a bunch of people sat in a room and said, "Let's call ourselves MSPs. This sounds pretty cool." That managed services of all kinds have been around since the beginning of time. This is nothing new, but people treat it as, "Oh my gosh, this is the new beginning." I don't know. So from that standpoint, I look at it and you can do a lot of the same types of things. And I think residentials, especially now, need managed services more than they did 5 years ago, because things are coming down the pike. The days of putting an antivirus on a computer and going for the gold is not going to happen, because there has not been one machine that I've ever put my hands on that has any name brand antivirus, name any of them, that was not infected. Not one. Not one. Well, except for Windows Defender. That's a whole nother story.
Well, there's a couple good points in the chat. When you're taking on businesses and all that, remember when to stop. Meaning, don't overpromise, don't overload yourself. If you find a good new customer, but you feel your plate is full, maybe drop your worst customer and onboard that new one. But you'll create a lot of misery if you're running around with your hair on fire or your head cut off, and you're not making any clients happy either. That's just going to be a recipe for disaster. Plus, you'll burn yourself out. Plus, you'll be miserable and all that kind of stuff. At that point, maybe it's time to consider expanding if that's where you want to go, meaning bringing on another technician, expanding your organization. We do have a couple questions in the chat kind of related just to this. Well, if you're going to move into business, how do you charge them? I'm an all-you-can-eat guy. Some guys bill per endpoints. And my answer to that is it depends, like others would say. How do you want to price that out? And, how does the market or your market respond to that kind of pricing? And what are other guys doing in your area? If everybody's doing per endpoint pricing, maybe you want to differentiate and try to do an all-you-can-eat plan like I do. A lot of the guys that are on the show do a type of retainer where it's a fixed fee for this many hours, maybe rolling over or not rolling over. And some do, a combination of both, where there's a fixed fee for services, and then they bill for maybe the tools, like for AV or backup and all that separately. So, there's a big mix there. And I do not think there is one simple answer for that, because a lot would just depend on the market you're in. If you're in a very small town in South Dakota, it's going to be a little bit different than what you're going to bill somebody in New York. So, Tim, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I've been doing managed services now since 2008. We have over 1,500 endpoints under managed. Now, I was a break fix shop, like most of you probably listened to this podcast, for many, many years. It was very lucrative. I enjoy doing it. The biggest challenge with break fix is that there's no passive income. Unless you are working, unless you are billing, you are not making anything. Also, you don't know the status of your machines out there. You don't know what's going on with them. You don't know if they're being patched, managed, and updated. We got into managed services in a big way around 2008. We started converting all of our clients. An excellent book that I would recommend from Carl Palachuk called Managed Services in a Month. If you are a break fix shop and you are definitely wanting to move to managed services in the business arena, it is an excellent book that can help you get that first managed service contract out there. I also talk about it a good bit in my book. I think Carl's is excellent, but my book, How to Start and Run a Successful IT Company, I cover that quite a bit. But the key is landing on a price that you can afford to provide that service. How much do you charge per machine? I've seen anywhere from $85 a machine, $75 a machine, up to $175 a machine. It's going to depend on what your market will bear in your city, what the going rate is, what other people are charging. And then what are you going to include in that managed services? What we do is we put our RMM tool, remote monitoring and maintenance tool, on their machines. We use Autotask, which is an excellent product. ConnectWise is also out there. We like Autotask better. It's got an endpoint manager that's tied directly with the product. and we really like it. And we also include antivirus. And we give them almost unlimited support. Now, what we tell people is if you have a ticket that's going to take us more than, we can tell right off the bat, it's going to take more than 2 to 4 hours to do, then we consider that a project. Okay, so if a project is installing a new server, installing a new switch, installing a new backup system, something like that, but we tell them what the project's going to cost before we get started. You have to be really careful. And kind of one of the gurus in managed services is a guy named Gary Pica. Gary talks a lot about defining your edges around your contract, where you say, we're going to provide all of these services for you, but if you go above that and ask us to do additional things, we have to charge you for that. And you have to be careful not to be taken advantage of by your clients. But the one thing business owners hate more than anything is, I'm paying you $3,000 a month. Why am I getting a bill over here for $200? Well, it's because we installed a laptop over here. Well, they really, really don't like that. Maybe even eat a little bit of time every once in a while to keep that customer happy. Where you make the money in managed services is the long-term relationship. It's not how much you make on any one given month. In one given month, you're actually going to lose money on them. They're going to have problems. You're going to be there a lot. You're not going to make any money that month on that client. But the next 2 or 3 months, they may hardly call you at all. And those are the months where you're really making money off of that client. You're doing the services. You're doing the managed services and the monitoring and the patching and everything, monitoring the backup system, but you're not having to go out there a lot. And the way, I wrote a whole chapter about how to sell managed services. That's one of the biggest tricks to getting into the managed service business, is how to sell managed services to a client who's never had it. The easiest clients to get are the ones that have had managed services before. They understand what it's supposed to be. They understand what you're supposed to do. It's just the previous company didn't do a very good job at it. And you can come in. You don't have to explain to them what managed services is. You just have to start providing it better than the previous guys. But I can talk about managed services all day long. So any other questions about that, I'm happy to answer. No, but I don't like the name, Jeff. As you said, I don't like the name managed services. I like managed IT services. We provide managed IT services. And then if you just type in managed services into Google, there's many other industries that offer a level of managed services. And it doesn't make sense. Whoever came up with that name, yeah, that wasn't really smart. At a minimum, it should be called managed IT services.
Sage advice for sure. And I did a little poll in the chat room, and it looks like most of the guys are doing MSP, some sort of type of managed service with their residential clients as well, Jeff, as you were asking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm seeing the numbers up there. And that's a good point. And Tim, to your point, that is an excellent point as far as managed services. People have to think about it like this, is that you can't do managed services for one client, because that's always going to be a losing scenario. You need to grow your base out where you have a multiple of clients, because between all of them, that money will keep coming in. Right. Some months you'll be dealing with this person. Some months you'll be dealing with this company. Some months you'll be dealing with that company. That's kind of the way it works. And so you have your back and forth, but it's usually never everybody all at one time where everything explodes. Hopefully.
Exactly. That's one of the big fears that a lot of people I've spoken with that want to get into managed services. Well, what if they call me too much this month? What if they do that? What if they do that? One of the best things I say is that if you're doing your job, if you're maintaining their network correctly, they're not going to have these giant, peaks and valleys. When we onboard someone, when they come on our managed services, the first thing we do is go in there is clean their network up extensively. Okay, we clean up every machine, everything that's going to cause a phone call to our office. We try to take care of it now when they're being onboarded. Old machines, beat up machines, offer them a special deal. Say, listen, we can replace this over here. I'll throw in a couple of hours of install time if you'll just buy a new machine. Or, let me do this, let me do that. Because if you don't do that, all the phone calls that are going to flow in from that. And the most important machine in every company is the owner's laptop. Okay, that machine has got to work really, really well. And whatever you do when you start onboarding, the first place you need to go is go see the owner, see what he is using, he or she, their laptop, their phone, their desktop. How do they sync with each other? When they're on vacation, what do they need? Because that is the guy that if he calls you 2 or 3 times about the same problem, you are gone. I don't care how good a job you're doing on everything else. If that owner is not personally happy with what you do, you're out of there. And one of the things I do, I mean, I've got lots of customers and lots of machines under contract, and I give everybody my personal cell number. Now, a lot of people wouldn't do that. A lot of IT company owners wouldn't do that. But I email them and I say, I email all the management staff and I say, here's my personal email and my personal cell phone number. If we're not responding to you quick enough, you can call me. Everyone loses clients every once in a while. It's just a fact of being in business. But I absolutely hate it when I get the call that we're being dropped and I didn't know anything about it. It happens every once in a while. Once in a blue moon, that will happen. But the owner's been complaining and I didn't know. And I make it a point of when I'm onboarding them to really talk to that owner and the main office manager and say, listen, if we are not responding quick enough, if we're not getting to your tickets fast enough, whatever complaint you have about us, I want to know about it. A small business, if you're a small IT company owner, you're obviously going to know. You're going to be the guy they call anyway. But, make sure that you are offering that personal service to people and they can always reach you. And your answer always is, I don't know what's going on here, but let me find out. I'm going to shake the trees and I'm going to get somebody to respond to your problem like right now. So just, that personal interaction with the owner is extremely important. So good tip there.
No, that's really good. Now, between you guys, do you guys, when you're onboarding a brand new customer, and obviously you're doing the managed services, you're doing the AV, you're doing the remote monitoring and management and all these different things, are you requiring them to have things to protect themselves, like, let's say, a hardware firewall? Or do you just kind of go, hey, this is something we need to work towards? And I'm talking outside of the HIPAA regulations, and all that kind of stuff. Do you guys force your customers to go, you know what, you have to get this firewall in order for us to be able to take care of you?
We won't take them on without it. Okay. The majority of our customers are businesses, and the majority of them have a firewall when we come in. If it's old, if it's a home-based firewall, I said, look, we've got to get you. We use SonicWall almost exclusively. We've got to get you a better firewall in here. It's about the price of a PC. There's basically not a lot of monthly cost to it. We actually add it as a device that we manage. So we charge the same for that we would charge for a PC. But I say, you don't really have a choice. We can develop some nice reports out of there if you want us to. We can show you the traffic through your network. You can do filtering, build up the advantages to having a firewall. And you don't usually have a big problem selling it. But I don't have a single client that doesn't have a hardware firewall. And and again, if it's a very small business, that's a little harder thing to sell. But there's even some inexpensive firewalls. Even SonicWall has one that's just 10 users or less. That's just not that expensive. Even if you have to say, look, I'll charge you, you can make 3 payments on it, because you know how much it's going to save you for problems in the future by them having it.
I agree with that. John?
Ditto. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. That's sage advice. And I think we brought that up 2 weeks ago when when I said I kind of changed my mind from 5 years ago when I thought maybe a business could get away with just an inexpensive, what I would call small business class, just a router, not a UTM or firewall based. I think in today's world, you have to have something like a UTM, like a SonicWall or a Calyptix or WatchGuard or any of those in just about any size business or any business, even if it is a micro business. And like Tim said, there are, even Calyptix has, with their firewall as a service, I mean, it's pretty cheap. I mean, there's really just no excuse not to do it anymore.
I went into a new dental practice that was not a client, the potential client. It was a pretty good drive from our office. And I was debating whether to bring them on anyway. They needed a new server. They had 25 workstations. Right out of their cable modem, the cable was plugged right into their switch. Absolutely no firewall whatsoever. And they'd been running like that for who knows how long. And I couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe that's the way they were set up, that any IT person would let them run that way, especially in a medical environment. So a firewall is not an option, especially in a medical environment.
And I think Tim has alluded to this too. If you put a good UTM and firewall in, that's going to help your business in the long run as well, because you're going to have less calls about, just the plain old malware stuff that we deal with, because your firewall and UTM is going to help against a lot of that to begin with the gateway stuff that it does. So, in the long run, pushing that sale or getting that sale in is a win-win for you and your customer. So.
That's good. And I think, Tim, you nailed it too, as far as you've got to give them the pros to having that type of device or paying for that type of device in their business. All right.
One more thing, Rick in the chat brings up a good thing. When you do onboard a new business client, set the expectations. If you go in there and they're a huge mess, you might want to tell them, well, it's going to take 1, 2, 3 months until I get you to where I think you should be. So, be a little patient with me. We're going to onboard you slowly. These are the things that, we need to do. So just set those expectations. If you're walking into a mess, don't promise them the world, and then they're going to struggle for 2 or 3 weeks while you get all the kinks out. So, just make sure you're doing that communication thing.
Exactly.
One of the important things is if you're a managed service provider, you're going to have a contract. Now, a contract is something that's challenging for people that are just getting into managed services, but that is something that I help my clients with, because I do a consulting practice on the side of my MSP, timtaylorconsulting.com, if you want to check it out. But one of the big struggles is the contract. But one of the pages we put in our contract near the end is this is what we're going to do during onboarding. When we onboard you to become one of our clients, these are the things that we're going to do. And we're going to be doing this and this and this on all of your workstations and this. And they love it that you're doing all that, because these things need to get done. But that's part of our onboarding fee. And we charge them an onboarding fee. And what we do is we make it equal to 1 month of service. Okay, so I just tell them, listen, up front, you're going to pay us 2 months up front. And that's our onboarding fee. And it covers everything that we do, all the software we have to put on your machines, all the labor and the time. And no one ever seems to have a problem with that when it's equal to their monthly fee. Say their monthly fee is $2,500 a month. We charge them a $2,500 onboarding fee. And some customers aren't going to be that hard to onboard, and some customers are going to be really hard to onboard, but we keep it consistent at that. And the funny thing is, when I used to charge, I'm going to charge you $1,000 for onboarding, they would go, what's the $1,000 for? They would fight me on it. But when I make it equal to the monthly managed service price, they don't ever have a problem with it. So, but make it very clear what all you're going to do. And part of that's putting in a firewall. Part of that's making sure their backup system is up to par, that you can get notified if their backups are not working correctly. There's some good, like Datto backup systems. They have excellent reporting, and you can check every day. You can have it notify you if there's a problem with the backup system, and you would know about it ahead of time. So have that onboarding document. It's a very important thing.
Now, a lot of people will say when they try to do managed services from their break fix practice that they have a hard time with things like onboarding fees because the customer doesn't want to pay for that. Now, I'm pretty sure I know your answer, Tim, but what would you say to that?
Well, I think it's in your head. I honestly have not signed a managed service contract in 3 years where someone said, I'm not going to pay for an onboarding fee. That's just ludicrous. Okay. Now, if you're bidding against 3 other companies and your prices are all about the same, and you think that's what it's going to take for you to win the deal, and they're large enough for you to make it worth that, then that could be a negotiation. You could say, you know what is it going to take to get your business? Okay. What is it going to take? All 3 of us are about the same price. Maybe we're about the same reputation or size company. What is it going to take to get your business? If I lowered the onboarding fee by half, would that do it? Could we sign it right now if I did that? If I remove the onboarding fee, okay? What is it going to take to get your business? When you get down to that point, then you can say it. But I mean, the average customer, just say, listen, when we come in here and onboard you and we're going to do all these things, show them that report, say that you pay 2 months up front. There are many, many, many things in this world where you sign up for something and you pay 2 months up front. That is, try getting an apartment first, last, security deposit. All of that stuff is really common, and nobody fights me on that, but just make it equal to the monthly amount. If you make it something different, if they feel like you just pulled that out of the air and that's just what you want to charge them. And that's where they have a problem. If you make it equal to something that they're already agreeing to pay for, it just goes a lot smoother. And, I just don't think charging a good onboarding fee for a managed service client, especially somebody that, is a decent sized client, is going to be a problem, because you're going to have to spend the time in there, and they should know that they need to pay for that.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, the only 2 possible exceptions I'd see to that is if you're transitioning a current break fix client that you already have in good shape. You might be able to avoid the onboarding fee because you already know what's happening and you already have a relationship. If you do get a pushback from the onboarding fee, like we don't, and a lot of guys fight me on this too, but we don't do contracts. So we don't We don't lock you in for a year. We don't lock you in for 3 years, which, in business practice on paper is not good, but we win a lot of clients that way, and it keeps us honest and keeps us working hard. But a lot of the times I don't usually charge an onboarding fee if I get any resistance, but I'll ask for a 1-year term. There's still no contract, but I'll say, you got to give us at least a year, because we're going to do a lot of work up front. And then you're going to find out all we're going to be able to do is help you with, we're going to be doing project work after that. Your network's going to be so great that, all these little things that we're going to fix for you are going to go away. I think the point of the conversation is, don't give that away, because you're going to have a lot of man hours into ramping up that network. So that's a sunk cost if you don't get some money back for it. So just make sure you go in wide open, with your eyes wide open, that, well, it might take you 10, 15, 20 man hours, depending on what you're building an hour, to get a network in shape, and you're not going to collect any money while you're doing that. Just keep that in mind. That's a huge danger. So, and I think guys forget that they just think, oh, I'm good, I'll go in there, I'll clean everything up. You never know what you're going to walk in through. And I never thought of it, but Tim had a great point about, it should be, whatever you're going to charge them for onboarding, I like the idea. It's the first month, 2 months, whatever that is. It just makes it, because you kind of throw that number out there with confidence. And I think that's half of what your pitch is. It's a confident pitch that, look, this is what we do. This is what we do all the time. This is what all our clients use. This is what works, and it's proven, and this is what we do. High five, let's get started. That kind of thing.
That's good. I like that. Hey, let's take another quick break, and then we'll see where we're at with this subject, and maybe get into some emails if we think we've exhausted this enough. Our show today is brought to you by Ninja RMM, the easy-to-use, single-pane remote monitoring and management solution to help you become more efficient, more productive, and more profitable. Ninja RMM understands what you need to help your customers, which is why their RMM solution is integrated with tools you use every day. With Ninja RMM, you can have a faster fix response time and offer preventative maintenance to your customers. Ninja RMM provides patch management, antivirus, email, SMS alerting. You can be up and running quickly with minimum training time. Plus, there are no contracts, so you can focus less on stress and more on your customers, which makes all of us happy. It's integrated with tools you use regularly. There's things like remote support. You can use TeamViewer, things backup. You have Cloudberry, antivirus, WebRoot, PSA integrations, and network management, and more. You have network visibility inside your RMM, easy to read dashboards, which I like because I need something easy to read or I don't understand it. And a powerful device search to create custom queries and export the list to keep your customers up to date on the hard work that you do for them. Sometimes you got to show them what you're doing to keep them up and running. You also have an executive style report showing important system metrics such as health score, software added or removed, hardware changes, and TeamViewer connections. Ninja RMM is offering Podnutz listeners a free 30-day trial, and when you decide to buy, a 10% discount. Take advantage of this offer. Go to ninjarmm.com/10off. All right, let's go ahead and have some closing notes. Is there anything else that we need to talk about as far as transitioning from the break fix model to the managed service model when it comes to either the business or residential side?
One thing that I would add is it is a challenge if you have a break fix customer and you've had them for a while and you spend a fair number of hours there to move them over to managed services. It is usually going to be a little bit more, and you've got to convince them that this is the reason I'm doing this. I can make you a priority client. That's one of the big issues. All my managed service clients are my priority clients. If you force it, I can't send the same technician out here. This is a big selling point. With all of our clients, when they sign a managed service contract with us, they get a dedicated network administrator. This is the person you're going to see most of the time on site. He won't be the only person that comes. When you call in the help desk, you'll get other people, but this is your dedicated network administrator. If this guy has been the guy break fixing them for a while and they really like this guy, this is exactly how I got a large medical client to come on managed services one time. She was break fixed for a long time, and they were large. They had 4 servers, 4 locations, 25 machines in one location, at least 10 or 15 in all the other locations each. So they were large, and they were paying a fee per workstation for we call it remote care, and then they were paying hourly for his time. But I knew she really liked this technician, so I came in. And my contract was going to be more than she was paying on average for break fix work. But I said, listen, we don't do that anymore. We do managed services now, especially given your size. We've got to commit this kind of resources to it. And she's like, I don't know. I don't think so. And then I said, well, listen, if you force me to stay the way we were, I'll do it for you for a while, but you won't get the same technician you've had out here. You're not going to get this guy that you're used to. She looks at me, she goes, where do I sign? It's exactly what she said. And she immediately signed the contract, immediately, because she liked him so much and she did not want to change, that she signed it immediately. So it is definitely not impossible to move people from a break fix model to managed services. And that's one thing Carl's book, Managed Services in a Month, is actually really, really good at. So I would definitely, that helped me when I actually went from break fix to managed services. That book's been out there a long time. It's an excellent book. And I would definitely read that. If you're trying to move to managed services and have a lot of break fix clients, it's an excellent resource.
And to Tim's point, I think what he just discovered, or what he discovered with that client, was the soft spot for that client. He figured out that technician was what he needed to close that deal. You know, in the chat, they're talking a little bit about, well, don't call your onboarding fee a fee. Call it something else, because somebody might not like the fee word, or, you know, hide that onboarding fee in your monthly cost, or, you know, find what your pain point is on the customer and sell towards that. So that might be a way to make that closing that MSP deal easier.
Well, I think one of the things that Tim has alluded to is, and he said this a while back, is it's a mind game. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck in this business. They get stuck in doing things a certain way, so they don't try to think outside the box. And to me, when you're dealing with a customer, this is almost like a chess game. And it's not like you're trying to outdo your customer, but you're trying to figure out what's the best way to be able to move all your pawns and all your pieces to a way that's going to help and benefit that customer, so that they have less problems and they're more easily taken care of. And you just have to sell. We call it selling. You can call it whatever you want. It's what I call providing service. And in this day and age, in this country, here's the thing. Service generally today sucks. So because of that, if you can have something where you're providing a service, you're providing value to your customer, and they trust you, they like you, the chances are they're going to work with you regardless, because they do like you and trust you. So just something to think about. Get out of your own head and start to think about this almost like a game. What do I need to do to provide my customer the best solution possible to help them? Again, you need to be paid accordingly. And to Tim's point earlier too, talking about a lot of times it's going to be a little bit more for the managed services. And a lot of times that's true. And that's partially because, and I know we harp on this a lot, because people in their hourly rate are not charging enough. And it's such an astronomical thing to go from here to here that maybe the switch was only half of what it should have been. So these are just things to keep in mind. You are an expert in your field. You are good at what you do, regardless of what other people say around you, or you wouldn't be doing it. You just need to be able to take that with confidence and go out there and win those contracts, win those people over, do the best work you can possible. And at the end of the day, they'll have the service, you'll have money in your pocket, and you'll be able to buy things like groceries, a house, cars, things like that. You know, things that are important. Put shoes on your kids, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely keep that in mind. I think this has been a great conversation, and we thought we were going to go into more things, but I think what we're going to do is I have a bag, literally a bag full of emails. I'm kidding. It's about 7 emails, and we appreciate all the emails we get all the time from the listeners. So we're going to answer some of these things. Some of these things are going to be maybe some of the things we've already talked about, but I wanted to get these out because it's been a couple weeks since we had a show. John, I was working last week and we didn't have a show. So anyways, so let's go ahead and start off with the first email. And this one's interesting, and I want to get Tim and John's take on this. This says, "Hi, Jeff. I like the idea of a walkthrough of some of the tools, processes used for virus cleanups in the secret Facebook group. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I've used many of the tools mentioned in the podcast, but always good to see someone else's processes to pick up on the things I hadn't thought of and or streamline the process. I I looked at TechWaru a while back, but it crashed quite a bit on badly infected machines. So I ended up giving up and running things manually again. I generally do the following: image the operating system, terabyte unlimited, image for Windows, test the drive, MHDD or Vivard from the Ultimate Boot CD for Linux, test the RAM, memtest 86 plus from the Ultimate Boot CD for Linux, uninstall any obvious junk using add or remove programs. TFC, temp file cleaner by Oldtimer. It is an old one. These items I will run until the scans run clean. I don't always run them all, but more often than not, I will let them run unattended as a sanity check. Use patchmypc.net to download and run Rogue Killer, ADW Cleaner, Junkware Removal Tool, Kaspersky, TDSS Killer, Combo Fix. Oh, Lord. If you're still using Combo Fix, we need to talk. Spybot Search and Destroy, Malwarebytes Anti-Malware, Super Anti-Spyware, Final Cleanup with MCSoft Emergency Kit, UVK, ESET Online Scanner, MSE, or whatever AV it came with if they are attached. Then if I don't feel things are weird or need a second opinion, Hitman Pro, Herb Protect, Auto Runs, Process Explorer, Process Monitor, sysinternals. Time-consuming scans, but pretty thorough. I imagine there is some tool overlap as you discussed on the show, so maybe time to revisit TechWaru or something similar. Thanks, Mr. Anonymous. So let me tell a quick story before I let these guys in. Back when I first started cleaning modern-day PCs back in '99, I would basically run the gambit of software tools. I was using, probably in the early 2000s, Viper Antivirus had a standalone tool that did an excellent job. The problem with that tool, and it's not a problem if you have time, the problem with that tool is that it would run anywhere from 6, and I would run this in boot up mode. It would run anywhere from 6 to 13 hours. But back then, my customers were very, very happy because that was one spanking fast machine and very, very clean. But what I learned over time is I would put other tools on top of that. And a lot of times I was doing way too many tools that were doing the same things or finding little to nothing. And so I was spending a lot more time touching the machine because, yes, even though you can run those things unattended, they still take time to go back and check. And in today's day and age, you almost need something that you can either run unattended and then go back in and do a couple checks so you can turn that thing back around and get it back out to the customer if you're doing residential, or get the business owner, business customer that's able to use that PC without you, you running hours and hours and hours worth of scans on it. So that was my story. Since then, I use a lot of different tools. I test tools out. I've used TechWaru. I've used the UVK. I use a lot of different things. I don't run as many scanners as I used to because I kind of know what I'm looking at when it comes to what I'm seeing is wrong with the computer. And then I might end up going into things like, Windows all-in-one repair tool or something like that if something is really, really messed up on the system after I've cleaned it up. Anyways, what do you guys do for the virus removal, malware removal process, fixing network problems, etc., on a machine that needs to be basically cleaned up?
Well, I'll go first. Well, my first inclination, if a machine got that bad in the environment that we manage, I have a bigger problem. That I'm either doing a horrible job with the tools I'm recommending, or I've given that user far too much access rights on their PC that they could get it that deeply infected, or something to that effect. Now, I may run that number of scans. I don't know if I've ever run that number of scans, but I may do that if somehow some computer got infected and hit my bench and I just can't find what's wrong with it. So I'm literally taking that shotgun approach to try to find whatever that problem might be before I don't know. That sounds like a lot of time. I almost fell asleep during the list reading. But, my first inclination would be that if that's happening on a network that I manage, that there's something wrong with either my UTM setup, my base endpoint protection, or the other things that I do on PCs to secure them. So that would be a huge red flag or warning to me that something's not right immediately. So to circle back on the tools, I think you have to standardize on stuff. meaning choose a UTM device. I would probably choose a endpoint protection that's not related to that UTM device. So if I was going to use a Sophos UTM, I would probably not use Sophos AV on my endpoints. And the only reason I say that is just so that I can do two different opinions what is happening on my network. And then you can get into securing things like the DNS in your network and maybe do some filtering through your UTM and on and on and on and on. But to brass tacks it down to a tool that I use the most just to fix little problems, I rely on UVK probably 90% of the time.
Okay. In my own situation, because I own a managed service company and I mostly am in the sales and management arena, I'm not personally the one running those tools anymore. I will tell you, though, just as he said, if I have a machine that's that infected that required that many tools, I can reformat a computer faster than I can read all those names again. Then you got a bigger problem. You have a much bigger problem. Make sure you use firewalls that have AV protection built into the firewall, because everything coming onto that computer has got to flow through the internet and flow through the firewall to get into the network. And SonicWall and other firewalls offer an antivirus level that's at the firewall, so it stops a lot of things before it ever gets in. And I'm not exactly sure what tools my technicians use. I do know there's a law of diminishing returns, though. You hit a certain point where I've scanned this thing so many times that I'm just going to reformat it, honestly. Just start over, get their documents off or whatever. Now, when it's in a home computer, it's a much more detailed process because everything they have is on that machine. In a business environment, they're encouraged not to keep documents and things on their machine. And you could re-image the computer pretty quickly, put their Office version back on there, get them reconnected to the network, set up their printers. And then, when they log on the network, it maps their drives and there's all their documents and things. So it's a lot easier in a network environment than it is a home computer. But there is a law of diminishing returns, I think, if you run too many things.
I agree. To circle back on why I made the comment about Combo Fix the way I did, one of the comments in the chat room was Combo Fix was XP only. I think actually it would work all the way through Windows 7. Here's the problem with Combo Fix. Not that it was a bad tool. I just believe there was a bunch of people out there that used it wrongly. Back in the day, the way I used Combo Fix was it was my last minute remediation tool after I'd scanned and got rid of all viruses and malware if there was problems in the Windows system. And it would do things like, TCP resets and all that kind of stuff in the background. Anything that got changed in the Windows environment, Combo Fix would go in and really good fix those things. A lot of people back in the day tried to use it for malware removal, and it would bork more machines than not. That's the problem with it. You would run this thing, and the next thing you know, you're formatting that baby. You're done. So I use Combo Fix very sparingly, only when I had Windows problems that were in. A lot of it was back in. I think I stopped using it after XP, to be honest with you. I was on other tools at that point once Windows 7 came out. And so that's just kind of where I was at. But yeah, Combo Fix, you should not be using it. And there's way better tools out there nowadays that will work way better than Combo Fix. So I would just throw that one away and not use it anymore, even though it was a great tool back in the day.
Just a little update. The last time Combo Fix was updated was March of this year, believe it or not. And it does work on XP Vista 7 and 8 and 32-bit and 64-bit. But again, I agree with everything that you said wholeheartedly. It was always my last resort. Well, I'm going to wipe this computer, but let's run Combo Fix because that might save me a little bit of time.
Hail Mary, baby. Hail Mary.
Hail Mary, baby. That's right.
All right. Okay, so it comes from a Door-to-Door Geek, the wonderful owner of the Podnutz network, and he sent this along. Said this adapter performs CPR on your router if it becomes unresponsive. And this is from the Gadgeteer. And it basically, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it basically sounds like you have security cameras or other automation devices in your home, IoT gadgets and stuff like that, and you need a way to reset them. It sounds like this will actually basically restart the router and get things going. But we'll have a link for this in the show notes. You guys can read that.
Let me add on to that really quick, because that's kind of what a Wattbox will do for you as well. So in a business environment, there's two things here. In a business environment, if you have to restart your router often, then I think you're using a lousy router. I mean, your router should be a very, very consistent and long-term product, so you should not have to reboot that often. But on the other hand, the cable modem provided by the cable provider is often something that may need rebooted. So with a Watt box, what you can do is the Watt box will monitor the IP connection of that device to find out if it has connectivity or not. If it does not, then you can set the Watt box to power on and power off and on that device, which could save you a truck roll. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And I use it here in my own personal office, and it is hooked up to my cable modem, among other things. And it will do basically, I have mine actually reset every Sunday just to cycle through that cable modem. And it's a cable modem that I use. I don't use the ISPs because that's how I roll.
Beep, beep.
It's not going to reset here in a couple of minutes, is it?
No, hopefully not. Now, Tim, do you use anything as far as being able to remotely reset routers and things like that?
There is a great product, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, that it's internet accessible, which means you can remote into basically an internet-based power strip or an internet-connected power strip, and you can manually turn things off. I don't think it has a timing function on it where you say automatically turn off every Sunday afternoon at 5 o'clock, but I know that you can reset things with it, and I can't remember the name of it right now. I know we got a sample one at my office, and my technicians were playing with it, because that does, like you said at the very beginning of the show, like the Xbox One, it's turning something completely off, unpowering it completely, which the power button on the front does not always turn it off.
No.
I remember the early days of PCs when the original ones, yes, it was a big power switch on the back, okay, pow, and it turned that thing off. And then later, it was an intelligent power switch on the front, and people would press that to turn it off. And if the machine was hosed up just enough, it wouldn't actually turn off. And I would tell people, no, pull the power cord out of the back. That's the only way you guarantee it's completely off. Or the power, sometimes the power supply had an on-off switch on it, and then plug it back in, and then it should come back to life. But yeah, any device that you have trouble with periodically, that just a hardware reset will make it function. But like John was saying, if it is something that happens all the time, then there's something wrong with that device, and you need to replace it. Absolutely.
Yep, I agree. All right, this one was sent to John, and I'm sorry, before the show, John, you just want me to read this? I don't know if you still have this one or not.
I can't see it from here, but go right ahead.
Okay. Smart aleck. Says, hello, John. I am an ardent listener of Podnutz Computer Repair Podcast. I don't know why he's just talking to you. Anyways, I'm just starting out, as I mentioned in my email to Jeff a few months ago. Okay, he mentioned me. He's on the good side again. I love your show and learn a lot from it. I've heard you mention UVK malware and virus repair software a number of times. I've downloaded and tried the free version, but a lot of the functionalities have been locked down. I intend to get the pro license and would like to get your thoughts on it. It is your go-to malware removal tool only, or do you use it for general system repairs? Would you have any advice in getting it with his tech tool store, or UVK on its own is enough? Please, in the future, can you make a podcast on how to use both these tools and how it has helped your business? Thank you very much, Edward from the UK.
I just want to start by saying that is a fantastic question, Edward, and thanks for addressing me directly. I'm glad you realized who does the show notes. No, in all honesty, I use UVK Ultra Virus Killer for much more than virus killing. I would say virus killing is what I do the least of with UVK. I use all of the other tools built into UVK more. If I can't do it through my RMM, which I would suggest anybody doing business support, you should try to do as much as you can through your RMM remotely, like resetting print spoolers, whatever, the gamut of everything. But if you have to get local access to the computer, UVK has all of those tools built in. Meaning you can you can reset a profile from within UVK. You can do a Fabs Auto Backup Lite with UVK. You can get in and do some direct registry editing with one-click buttons from within UVK. And by the time I finish my diatribe on listing of features, Fred will have added something new, because he is always updating that product, always keeping it good to go. He was on a show recently with Jeff, about a month ago or two now. Great product, super price. And yes, I would get the tech tool set as well with it, because it's just a great tool to keep all the tools that you use up to date, whether they're in this list of boy, I don't know how many items are in the tech tool set. Jeff, do you?
Oh no,
Got to be like
a
600
lot.
or 500 or 600 tools listed in his set. But then you can also put in your own, add your own, and it automatically keeps all your tools up to date. So yes, I find both of those very handy, and you can get them both one-time fee. I think they're both for under $100. So
Yeah,
totally customizable. I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Fred is actually, he's updating it, like John said, all the time. So it's well worth it. He's only charging you a one-time fee. I've tried telling him and both Fab that they need to charge more for their product, but you know, we'll see what happens, because they're great tools that people can use. And here's the thing: when you buy stuff like that, it's a write-off. You can write it off in your taxes. Oh wait, you need to be paying your taxes. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Well, keep in mind that Fred also has a donation button, I believe, on his site. So that one time when UVK really saves your butt and saves you hours of time, why don't you toss him $20 or something? Yeah. And the other great thing that most people don't know about Fred is I believe he's a guy just like us. He's out every day fixing computers, and UVK is a tool he built for himself. So a lot of those tools are really directed at exactly what you and I and everybody else does every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't say enough about UVK, especially for the price. It's like, you know, we always tell everybody, well, go get the customers and all that before you buy any tools. Just buy UVK, and then you'll be good to go to help those customers.
Absolutely.
Fred, send me my check.
All right. Let's see. This is from, Kevin. It says, Jeff, love your podcast. Great job. I know you have a regular host on some shows that has a company that will help other computer repair businesses with remote IT support. I can't remember the name of the company, but it is at the tip of my tongue. I need to find someone that can help me ASAP troubleshoot a DNS issue on Windows 2012 server. I would appreciate any help you can offer in directing me to someone I could pay for this assistance in this. Thank you for reading this, your help, and the great shows you produce. Kevin Brendel. Thank you, Kevin, from Brew City PC. And I went back and forth with Kevin, and I could not remember, because the first name that came to my mind was Chris Carruthers. Used to do white label IT support remotely, and he could do stuff like that. And he's gotten out of that business and been doing his own consulting business, among other things. And that wasn't the person. So I'm not sure, John, if you remember, because I don't, who is ever on this show that helps with IT support for other business owners.
Well, I cannot remember anybody in the last year. There was another one. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but they've long been gone.
Yeah. So I went through.
I'm not sure of anybody in the industry that's doing that right now.
Yeah. Not
I
anybody.
will say this, Jeff, with my consulting practice, timtaylorconsulting.com, anybody that becomes one of my consultees and I'm helping them build their managed service practice or their IT practice, I do make my technicians available to help them if they run into an issue. We'll remote in, we'll help them configure firewalls, we'll do all that type of thing. So if you sign up for my consulting services, we will definitely help you.
Awesome.
I can't do ad hoc work for people that aren't one of my consultees, but definitely people that want to really grow their practice and grow their business. I can help them out.
Okay, awesome. And we will definitely have a link to that in the show notes.
Of course we will.
Very cool. Thanks, John. Thank you, Tim. All right, so let's see. We have, let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking the time to read my previous email on the show. It was great to hear everyone's thoughts on ESD safety, even with all the fun poking. Yeah, sorry about that. That was mostly me fun poking, and that I'm just a jerk. Don't worry about it. Everybody else brings all the goods. Anyways, I listened to your show this week and wanted to comment on your story at the start. I too occasionally open up a device to confirm part numbers for finding their replacements. In some of these situations, I found some of the manufacturers' websites contain a parts site that can be browsed by device serial number. Parts listed contain the manufacturer's part number, which I use to search Amazon, eBay, or your preferred vendor site. Other times, I'll use the manufacturer's maintenance manuals to find part numbers. Here are some of the part sites I use. There's one for HP, one for Mac, and one for Lenovo, and we will have those in the show notes. That is a great tip and would have saved me from ordering the wrong part, because I did something I normally don't do. I always look at the serial number on a laptop part that I'm taking apart to order the same exact one, because connectors can be different even though it might look the same online. So this would have helped me a lot, and we'll definitely put that information in there and appreciate it. For other manufacturers, I've not found suitable sites that let you find parts by device serial number. I hope these can help you in your future repairs. Thanks again for providing an informative podcast, and I look forward to listening to the next one. Regards, Alex Albert. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that, and we'll definitely put that stuff in there because that's, again, something I wouldn't have thought of. Hey, let's go to the manufacturer's websites and look at the part numbers.
So, I just want to remind everybody that back when Alex brought up his polyester comments and all that, that I'm the one that said that Alex is probably smarter than the rest of us and we should not be giving him a hard time. I rest my case.
Yes.
Thank you, Alex.
And Tim, so we were talking about the electrostatic. What does ESD stand for, John? I don't even know. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, actually wiring yourself up when you're working on taking apart hardware and different things like that.
And I remember in the early days of servers, we bought a compact server way back when, where I used to work, and we had a motherboard went bad, and the guy came to replace it. Boy, he was strapped down and had the rubber mat or the whole thing. He wanted to make sure there was no static that would tear up that motherboard. So
thank you, Rick, in the chat room. Electrostatic discharge. Okay.
Jeff, that is the sudden flow of electricity between two electrically charged objects caused by contact, an electrical short, or dielectric breakdown.
You want a funny story on that? I lived in Southern California, and I was maintaining a network out there of a few hundred machines back in the late 80s. And it was so dry and hot there that static electricity was really a problem. And this is an absolute true story. There was a printer that was sitting on a metal table, had metal legs, and I had on like penny loafers with a leather sole, and I could rub my foot across the carpet in front of the table, and I could make the printer eject a page. Honest to God, I wish I had video camera. They didn't have video cameras back then, but it was so bad. I literally could wipe my foot across the carpet, and it would make the printer eject a page. It was that much static electricity there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I had wrote back to Alex and said, listen, the reality is I do have a electrostatic mat that is tied off to a metal source to get the discharge out. I'm not a complete buffoon, but I don't wear the wrist, the safety strap.
Who have you surveyed on that?
What's that?
I said, who did you survey on that? On the buffoon portion?
Okay, well, opinions vary. That's all I can say. So, but no, it is a good idea. And again, even, yes, in dry environments during the wintertime, you've got the furnace going and you've got that, static electricity building up. It is more important at other times than others. So he was definitely right. And again, thank you on the parts.
Amen.
All right. Let's see. This is from, Okay, it says, hello, I'm a big fan of your show, and I used to listen to the shows you guys do on assisting new startup tech companies. And I haven't heard one in a while. You know what we do every week?
I think he's talking about Paco's show.
But I wanted to see if you guys had a forum or a group that could assist me with a few business-related questions I have with my small IT business. In the middle of a fork in my journey and really have been a one-man show for years, but need some direction. Thanks for any help, Derek.
Derek, it just so happens.
So let me read one more email before we get into that, and then we've got some names to read off. This just came in today. This says, hello again, Jeff and crew from Ireland. Hope all is well with you. A question for you all. I'm thinking of buying Kabuto and installing it on all my customers' computers. I like the fact that it lets me use my logo and the fact that they can request help from their desktop. I'm looking for feedback on Kabuto. Many thanks, Cormac at Crosshaven Computers. It says, by the way, a plug for the secret Facebook group. I advise anyone listening to sign up. I'm in a number of tech Facebook groups, and I find a few of them that you can nearly be attacked for asking some questions. I'm doing quite well with my business, but I'm not an expert in everything. None of us are. And that's why I like the Podnutz group so much. I can ask any question I want, and people answer in a respectful manner. Yes, we do. I use knowledge to make money for my business. So what I'm saying is join the Podnutz group and increase your profit. Thanks to all in the group for your help, and respect to all from Ireland. Thank you, Cormac, and appreciate that plug. So let's talk about that for a minute. We have a secret Facebook group. And if you want to support what we're doing here, the information that we bring on a weekly basis or almost weekly basis to help people in their computer repair business, then you can go over to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. If you give it just $1 a show, and it's usually no more than 4 shows a month, that's $4, a Starbucks coffee, a couple candy bars, I don't know, a bag of chips maybe. If you give any of those things up and give just $1 a show, we will let you into the secret Facebook group where you can interact with other people in a respectful manner that will help you and not make snarky comments about ESD, because I don't in there. And if you want to ever hear or see me go off on certain tangents, you'll probably see some videos coming up here shortly. I've already had one up there as an introduction, but there will be more of those because things that happen out in the industry, I have very strong opinions on, and I like to let other people know what my opinions are, whether you care or not. But no, anyways, for the help in the group, you can just go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. It's $1 a show, and that's very inexpensive for getting the knowledge of a group of people that are all trying to do the same things. And again, a rising tide raises all ships. So that's what we're here to do. I want to thank our newest.
Tell you what, I learned something every week. And just to circle back on a previous email, when she was looking for help, the group would be a great place to ask for that.
Yes.
Because there are guys and gals from all over at all different skill levels that might be able to help with the project work you're looking for. So keep that in mind. Post that in the group if you need some help.
Yes. And so that nobody is left out, also, you can always send an email. We will read the email on the show and answer the question also. So if that's the ability that you have, send an email. We'll get it on the show at some point and talk about it.
Well, the gentleman, the question that you just read a minute ago about starting his own company and wanting some help with growing that company, that's exactly why I wrote my book. I really wanted anybody in the world to be able to get it. You can get it on Amazon and also Kindle download from Amazon. If you're overseas, you don't want to pay for the shipping. We will ship the book out overseas if you wanted to, but that's specifically written on how to start and run and grow your IT business, become a managed service company, and how to sell managed services and provide great managed services. So that book will help you a lot. You can reach out to me afterwards if you want. I'll give you all the help I can. It's timtaylorconsulting.com. And, I'm working with a number of companies right now, helping people start out of the trunk of their car, just like I did.
Awesome. And I will second that. I actually purchased Tim's book a while back. And before I actually did the interview, because I told him I promised I would read it. And I actually did, because I buy tech books all the time. And it was funny, Tim, you were talking about Carl Palachuk's book. I have his book. I haven't read it yet. I'm getting there, though.
Hey, Tim, is that book an Audible or Google Audio or anything like that yet?
I haven't done it that yet, but I do want to do that. I used to do a radio show, and I can do the voice. I don't have a problem doing that. I need to do it on Audible. I've thought about it, just haven't done it yet. But if you ever did want to take your break fix practice into managed services, Jeff, that's where Carl's book really shines for people that have never done that. You doing a level of managed services right now, but are people that are scared to make that jump. I think that's where Carl's book comes in. But yeah, just building and running a managed service practice, or whether you should start a business at all. I really get into that at the beginning of the book. This is what it's really like, guys. And do you have the personal acumen to do this, even though any type of personality can do it? Do you have the life situation where you can do that right now? Because that's a big factor in whether you're going to succeed or not. And we want you to succeed. So don't try it until you're ready for, you have these things lined up before you dive out there on your own.
Absolutely. And again, you can always, what's nice about this business, what's nice and maybe sometimes bad too, is you can always take baby steps and you can learn along the way. And I'm all about educating yourself. And I think a lot of people don't take the time to educate themselves on a regular basis. Buy a book, read a book a month. And the one thing I told Tim this in our interview, the one thing I really like about Tim's book, it's stupid simple. And don't take any offense to that, Tim, but it's so simple to understand exactly what he's saying. And you'll see exactly what he's talking about throughout that process, that anybody can understand it. It's not going to talk over your head. It's not going to use big words like, it does use MSP, but we'll forgive that. But other than that, there are other things in there that will negate using the word MSP.
And a mutual friend of ours, Carrie Holzman, did an excellent review on my book as well. And you put that in the show notes. He's got a link on YouTube. He did that in the last show that I was on. But he gives about an 8-minute review of the book. And it is written for computer technicians. It assumes you are already a technician and you want to start your own business. So it is written for technicians. If you're not a technical person, you shouldn't start an IT company anyway. But like I tell my kids, I'd never go start a restaurant because I've never even worked in a restaurant. I've eaten in a lot of them, but you don't ever start a business that you don't know absolutely everything about that industry. But if you're a technician and you want to dive out there on your own, that's who I wrote it for.
Awesome. Appreciate that. All right. And so I want to thank our newest Patreon supporters. I know we were kind of discombobulated there, but all good information comes together. Our newest Patreon supporters are Alexander Albert, Jay Appleman, George. Oh gosh. Just forget the last name. George, thank you. John Brooks and David Gearing. I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. You guys are doing an awesome job, and we really appreciate it. It helps us to bring what we do here on a weekly basis and bring the goods, bring the information. Mostly my guests bring the goods. Again, I'm just here to kind of formulate questions and bring ideas together and then edit the podcast and do other things. But anyways, all good information, and I love this industry. I love being involved in tech and what we do. So that's why I always find it fascinating to talk about these topics and subjects and learn. That's what I did back when I started, and I'm still learning today. I can learn from the newest person in the room to the person that's been doing this for well over 20 years. Everybody has something to offer, whether you think you do or you think you don't. You're right. Anyways, some people get that. So let's go ahead and let's share a last thought and maybe where people can find us. And Tim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks again, Jeff and John. I appreciate the opportunity to be on today. Started my own managed services company, IT company back then out of the trunk of my car in 1999. I've made every mistake you can make in this business. I've succeeded in this business. And so 95%, I don't want to scare anyone, but 95% of small businesses fail within 10 years. If you don't want to fail, you need to work with somebody that knows what they're doing and has done it before you. Okay, and I can help you move along much more quickly than trying and failing at a lot of different things in the managed service business. So you can reach me at timtaylorconsulting.com. You can also hit Amazon and pick up How to Start and Run a Successful IT Company Without Losing Your Shirt. Amazon or regular book. So if I can help you out, just reach out to me and I'll be glad to do that.
Very cool. Thank you, sir, and appreciate you coming on today and sharing. Been very informative as always.
Yes, definitely.
And John?
Jeff, as they're saying in the chat, this has been the best show in like 2 weeks. So I think that we hit the nail on the head here.
Awesome. Now we just got to have Tim back every week so we can keep that level going up.
We're going to have a hard time doing it on our own. So Tim, please, anytime you're available, come right back.
You're always welcome.
I will do my best. I enjoyed it, and I do want to do future shows.
Fantastic.
All right, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com or leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000, and we will listen to those on the air. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.